Hello and welcome to This is Difficult Gaming Podcast, the show where we talk about video games and other things, but mostly just video games. I'm one of your hosts, Paul Ryugami-san. You're on my Twitch channel right now if you're watching us live. And I'm joined by Zach, another letdown. And special guest this week is other Josh, our social media manager.
Yeah, Josh might look a little funny this week.
Yeah. Still Josh. New face.
Did I ever tell you that my wife's grandmother, until she met me, and even a little after, insisted to everyone that my name was Josh?
Well, that was nice.
It was really odd.
Yeah, why?
That's a good name.
Yeah, it's a fine name. I'm curious why this was. No,
I don't know.
No particular reason.
No, she just assumed that I was Josh.
Yeah, you kind of look like a Josh. You could pull Josh off.
Yeah, you could totally do a Josh. And this is coming from Josh.
What, like over the top laughing, sitting cross-legged on my floor with a dog behind me?
Josh has come in all shapes and sizes. You know?
A cat can work too. I mean,
I could pull that off.
You got that dinosaur behind your dome.
I got Mr. Chomps,
you know? Yeah. So yeah, I think you could pull it off. Anyway, Josh is our like I said, he's our social media guy. We just started getting this going. We're pretty excited about it, and we're gonna try and have more of a presence on social media. So we're really happy to have him on board. Josh, you also recently started streaming, correct?
Yes. I've only been doing it for like about a month and a half now, so I'm still kind of getting my wings and everything.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we all start somewhere. What games have you been streaming?
I just finished. Before I got sick recently here, I got Resident Evil 4 finished off.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's my favorite Resident Evil.
So I hate it.
Oh my god.
But not because it's not a good game. Not because it's not a good game. I'm sure it's a good game. And watching you play it looked very enjoyable. It was a featured game on the podcast once that Colin basically forced us all to play. And I didn't really have time. This was back when we had a featured game every week that everyone was supposed to play, and that like we didn't really have time. Like now we have a rotation, so we've got like 3 weeks to play our game before we have to present it as a review. I only had a week, and I was busy that week and didn't get to play much, so I didn't get like familiar with the controls. And the controls, if you've never played that game before, are extremely jarring.
Mm-hmm.
They're not easy to get used to at first. I'm sure they're fine once you do get used to them, but it was a nightmare for me. And so I really had a bad time with it. I think I got to the first little village area where all the townsfolk are pissed off at you, and I dropped it like a hot potato. I was like, I'm done with this game.
They still had a little mixture of the tank controls in 4, but that was the first time they experimented with the behind the shoulders, like permanent kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever play any of the older ones? Like
I did. Yeah, I played like the first couple. Yeah, 1 and 2 back in the day. Yeah.
Because I would have argued that they definitely were a lot harder to deal with than Re4.
Sure.
But I think that's because the modernization of
Right, and I also played the Onimusha game. Spoiler alert, that's one of our reviews tonight. Or that's what I'm going to be reviewing tonight. So like tank controls didn't really bother me at the time. Sure, they were a nuisance, but like it wasn't like the end of the world. So
right.
So, yeah.
I have fond memories of Resident Evil 4. That was the first non-Mega Man game that my best friend Travis and I played at his house after one of our very, very long days of hockey. He lived right next to the local pond. And so if the ice was good, we were out there from dawn to dusk. And as soon as we couldn't see anymore, we'd go in and play video games.
Nice.
So Resident Evil 4 was one of the first. It was great.
Very cool. Well, you guys, as you all know, Josh, we talk about the games. We always start the podcast with the games we've been playing this week. So let's hear it, guys. What have you been up to this week?
Josh, you're the new guy on the block. Kick us off.
Right.
Yeah, let's hear it, man.
All right. So we already touched a little bit on Resident Evil 4. Just finished that up. It had been probably at least a decade since I last played it. So it's a nice little coming back to it because I went from 10 years ago, I used to beat the game with just a knife and a pistol, to, dying, I think, like 32 times the entire time. Feeling like, oh God, like younger me would have been like, what are you doing? You suck. But
Didn't you also
um,
used to speed run the game?
yeah, yeah. The fastest I ever did was 3.5 hours. That's
Nice.
still really, really slow. Just for a regular run. I know you're like, what? But
I spent 3.5 hours on like the first freaking
Yeah, I was
level,
gonna say
and
I
I
have nothing
got
but the most
20
respect for.
feet into the game.
yeah,
I
the
have
trick.
nothing but the most respect for speedrunners, but I am definitely not one of them. I am far too ADD, distracted by literally everything, dying on my own, due to my own hubris. Like,
Yeah. The trick is it for that game really is just always get the headshot, make him flinch, and give him a good old roundhouse. Move on.
fair enough.
That karate, dude.
Yes.
It's
Or you could do a
important.
nice little suplex if you knock him in the knee. But
There you go.
besides that, I've been playing Ocarina of Time. It's been, I don't know, at least a few years since I played it. So I'm doing a 3 heart run on it because
Ooh,
I've played it so many times that, I mean, I'm good at it. So, I just 3 heart it. One
Yeah.
shot kills once you hit an adult, and I'm totally okay with that because that's how it should be. At least for me. But I still really appreciate that game for what it is, even
yeah,
though playing with an Xbox controller, nowhere near as good as it used to be.
yeah. It's a little weird, isn't it?
Um, yeah, but uh, the DS version was super great if you guys ever played
I
that
That's
one.
love
the
the
version that
DS
I just
version. That's
barely
the
played
best
myself.
version
Yeah, it's
of it.
so
Yeah.
good.
I
And with
love it.
that, you get Master Quest, which was
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. I did a 3 heart run on that too. Still
Mm.
love it. So I guess it hasn't been 10 years since I played the DS version. I guess I lied. But
I played through the
um
DS version, I think, early last summer.
Yeah, I mean, shortly before I played Majora, so yeah,
Yeah.
probably about the same time frame.
Yeah. I love it.
uh, but I also did just pick up the For the King DLC that just came out. Things like 2 days ago. I only did one run through on it, but I was able to beat it in that first run. Um,
Nice.
I guess I just got really, really lucky. I had a really nice combo of a 3 team that I put together. Um, I didn't put in the new astronomer because I didn't realize that if you go into lore store right after you buy the DLC, you only have to buy it for one lore, which if you
Yeah,
don't have any.
you want to just give us a quick rundown? Like, I've never heard of this game.
I've
What
seen
is For the
playthroughs
King?
Oh,
of it. It's
yeah.
pretty cool.
Oh yeah, real quick, let me say what the DLC was even called so people have an
And also
understanding of it.
just like what the basic premise of For the King is, how you play and such.
Yeah.
Sure. So, For the King Lost Civilization was the newest DLC that came out, but the game as a whole is a tabletop turn-based uh, RPG, I guess you'd call it. So pretty much every time you start up a game, it's kind of like a roguelike. So you start with nothing and you have to build to something by the end,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
but you don't actually get to keep anything except for what you buy in the lore store later.
Hmm.
And the lore you unlock the further you progress in the game. So um, you start off in a small little town. They go, hey, go over to here first. So you go over there, and usually that's where you get like your first real quest to head over and kill some big baddie or take down and then it starts growing into a bigger overall story. And as
Mhm.
you're doing that, you're moving through the map on hexagons. Um,
Oh, you have my attention.
so that's
One of
where
my
the
other
tabletop
podcasts is called Adjacent Hex.
Um, so the that's where the tabletop aspect comes in. Um, and it auto rolls for you how many spaces you get to move in that hexagon, like how many hexagons.
Sure.
And you can pick up like little perks as you go, one per each character. That's kind of like also an extra life. So one
Okay.
of them
Right
might
on.
be you increase your movement permanently by 3. So from now on, your character can always move further. But if you die, you lose that perk, but your character comes right back to life
Nice.
in
Interesting.
that fight. But you lose that perk.
So it's
So
still, yeah. Okay.
so you can strategically use that as a death, um, and move on from there because you only have limited lives. I think it's seven lives you start with. which
Mhm.
if it's your first time playing through, you don't have any of the extra lore bonuses that you can run into. So the game's a lot harder when you first start. So that's where the roguelike
Sure.
elements come in.
Nice.
Um,
Sounds
but
really in depth.
Yeah, it really
yeah,
does some details.
the last fight for this DLC was 4 fights in a row, leading up
Ooh.
to a boss fight that I almost thought I was gonna lose because I could barely do anything to him because he kept petrifying me. But
Ooh.
yeah,
Any sort of any sort of like Adam and I were talking about this recently, like any sort of petrifying or poisoning or like just persistent uh attack is just such a nightmare in pretty much any game.
Yeah, I've been
well,
playing the Neo games recently, and like my dread is getting paralysis because you just
Hmm.
sit
Yeah.
there and you can't dodge. You just have to take whatever comes, and it's brutal.
Yeah.
well, here's the thing about the combat in that game. The AI in particular always likes to use things like poison, stun. There's this an electrical ability that so whenever you attack, it's like rolling a die that's
Hmm.
automatic. So it'll roll it for you, but if you got this electrical effect on you, you automatically have one miss on your roll,
Oh.
and that's permanent for like 2 or 3 rolls,
Ugh,
unless you use
Oh.
these herbs that you can get that'll remove that debuff.
jeez.
Huh.
Yeah, that
But
sounds brutal.
Yeah,
you
I
can
don't
do that to other enemies too, though. So I
yeah,
mean,
I mean it's one of those what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander sort of
yeah.
situations, but
And there's also some equipment you can pick up that'll make you immune to certain effects. So,
sure.
like
That's
that.
cool. I
So,
like
but
that.
I think that's a pretty good gist of what the game's about.
Nice.
You
Mhm.
just kind of want to keep following whatever storyline because I think there's 4 or 5 different storylines you could do now in that game,
Nice.
which I would highly recommend picking up because it's super fun. It was on Epic for free this past Christmas, like
Mhm.
during their several days of free games. I'm sure it'll pop up again because it's the second
I think
time
it's
he
on
showed up.
sale right now too. The base
Right.
game
Yeah.
for $7.99.
It is on sale right now for $7.99, and the DLC, I think it's still on sale as well.
Right
Um,
on.
I think it was
Nice.
around $5.
That's not
So
bad.
Cool. Yeah, that's not bad.
for like
If you really
$13.
like in-depth like strategy style games, that sounds like a pretty decent deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is. Oh, it's 4.79. The
Okay.
DLC is $4.79.
You
So
weren't
Right
far
on.
off with
Yeah, it
yeah,
is
$5, I
very
think.
close. It's a good
You're right.
just
ballpark.
round up with tax, you know.
Yeah, there you go.
What
Yeah,
tax?
very
I live in
nice.
New Hampshire.
um, and then the last game that I've been playing, I usually only play this with my friends because this game is unique, I guess you could say. It's called Space Engineers. So it's for that engineer inside of all of us who want to make our own stuff and then blow it up in 5 minutes.
Mm,
So
Yeah.
basically, what the game is you are an engineer in space, or you can start off on Earth or whatever planet you want,
No.
right? And you have to build stuff to take over, you know, everything. So most people start off on Earth. You have one-time gravity on Earth, like in real
Mhm.
life, and that matters in this game because gravity works against you all the time. So you have to
Sure.
make sure to when you design your own ships, and you have to do this piece by piece by hand. You have to place how many thrusters you want. You need to place where you want the drills, all of that. You can set up a whole bunch of auto sorting mechanisms, and
Mhm.
the biggest thing about space engineers, though, is figuring out what works and what doesn't. Because let's say you make a drill and you put on a bunch of down thrusters, so that way as you're going down, it'll push you back up, keep you uh, elevated.
Mhm.
Well, if you don't have enough when you're drilling down and picking up resources, it'll just drag you down and that's it. That ship's pretty much done unless you can attach more thrusters to it to pull it back up.
mm.
So you gotta like have a lot of foresight and understanding like, okay, if I have this much weight on my vehicle times, the gravity, how much thrust do I need?
So you actually have to do engineering
Yeah,
per the
essentially.
name. Yeah, I
Hence the
dig
That's
it.
name.
cool. That's
Yeah.
that's really neat. I
Yeah.
should get a team together. I know exactly the people that I would play that with, and unfortunately I
Yeah.
haven't talked to them in like 5 years because we used to do LAN parties all the time, and because that's not really a thing anymore.
Right.
Like I haven't talked to them since, but I'll keep that one in mind. I'll post that to the group because that could be kind of cool. I think they dig it.
The only problem with the game is, and it's been around for 7 years now, it's temperamental, I guess you could say. So
Sure.
because there's so much the game is keeping track of at all times, like little tiny pieces of like shrapnel flying through the sky, or laying on the ground or whatever, from your destroyed things or destroying other things or what have you. The game can sometimes be a bit laggy. And
That's fair.
for a time, and this is a true story, the developers removed ladders in the game, and their reasoning was, quote unquote, ladders are hard.
Wow.
And just recently, last year, they finally put ladders back into the game again because they finally figured out how to make ladders work correctly. But this is how, I mean, they have a great game, but it does have a lot of flaws. So when something weird happens, like you just randomly explode, it could be your fault or it could just be the game.
That's wild.
So,
Yeah. Crazy. Zach, what have you been up to? What have you been playing, man?
Oh, so I mean, it's been 2 weeks, right? We were off last week for some, I don't know, it had something to do with soup and a bunch of guys hitting each other really hard, and like the weekend and a goat were involved somehow. I don't understand it. It's
Dude, that
fine,
weekend
whatever.
stuff was weird. Let's be real.
I wasn't watching. I made that up
weird.
this morning. I was like, I need to drop it. So anyway, I have 2 weeks worth of gaming to talk about, and I'm very excited about it. I played Cyber Shadow. Not all of it. I'm sort of slowly working my way through it. I'm inching my way. I'm really savoring it, enjoying it. I actually used it in a demonstration in my classroom the other day because we're doing pixel art as part of one of our units. Yeah. And I was like, take a look at this game that I've been playing. It's rad. Yeah. So yeah, it's been really, really fun. I'm about halfway through it. I'm enjoying my way along. Hades, continuing to play with that. Just doing like one run every couple of nights. Nothing. I'm at the point now where it's just like, I'll just try it and see what happens. I've gotten enough of the lore that I'm satisfied, but not, overtly motivated to move too much else further forward. Almost finished up with Super Mario Party. Just need to get my wife to be a player too for me for a bit.
Are you trying to get divorced?
No, that'd be bad.
Are you trying to 100% it?
No, just fooling around with it, and she bought it for me with the intention of playing it with me.
Nice.
And she has yet to do that, so we're working on that.
How dare she?
I think she knows that it's it can be a pretty rage-inducing game. But she doesn't play games, so like she doesn't.
Well, that's a good game for people who don't really play games, honestly.
Exactly.
Like it's pretty low level.
My sister bought it for her family recently, so we're trying to like get to the point where we can at least teach them the mini games.
Yeah.
So they, whatever. So that's been fine. Finished Arkham Asylum on stream this past week.
Nice.
That game is rad. I love it. I've finished it so many times, but that end fight is absolutely blanking stupid. I hate it with a burn. It's so dumb. It basically is a quick time event with a really, really dumb fight that the camera doesn't move enough, and your abilities launch you all over the map. That invariably means you hit an electrified wall and shock yourself. It's really lame. The poison ivy fight that precedes it almost immediately is a far better boss fight, and it's not that good either. But the combat in the game is really innovative and fluid, and it definitely feels like Batman. So I'm willing to forgive it, and I can't wait to start Arkham City.
Is that the one that has all those Riddler trophies that you can
yes.
get? Yeah. Okay.
And
I remember getting those.
The first time I played it, I 100%ed it. Same with Arkham City. I promised Adam that I'd do some of the Riddler trophy stuff on stream at some point, but I'm definitely not going to do all of it because it's a huge headache. And it's like we talked a couple weeks ago about what games are streamable and what aren't, and trying to 100% Arkham Asylum, unless you absolutely perfectly know what you're doing, is an exercise in futility. Like nobody's going to want to watch that. You're just going to be wandering around like, oh, is this it? Oh no.
Sure,
it's going to look really stupid.
Solid point.
Yeah. So I'm definitely not. I'm just doing plot runs as I usually do for streaming, that sort of thing. And speaking of games with awesome plot, Chamali and Alex and I finished Gears 5 High Busters.
Nice.
And, oh my God, that DLC is fire. I want more. Give me more of that team.
Are they
So
going
Alex
to?
and I don't know. I've got the comic book down here. I'm going to read it. Maybe there's some cliffhanger or something. Maybe a little bit of information.
Yeah.
Come on, Coalition, give me more. I like Bugger the Phoenixes at this point. I just want the Hive Busters. They're so much more interesting. But sure, give me more Phoenix content too, because that's fine. Sorry, giant Gears of War fan. Yeah, it was super great. We'll talk more about that when we get into our main topic. And again on our main topic, Scott Pilgrim was a disaster yesterday.
I can attest to that. I also played Scott Pilgrim with Zach yesterday, and it was a disaster.
It was an unmitigated disaster.
It was an unmitigated. The one positive I think that we got out of playing it, and this is by no means saying Scott Pilgrim is a bad game, because I actually think it's a
not.
really
It's
fun
a
game.
really good game. I went back and played it on my own today.
Yeah.
I got almost all the way through it and burnt out a little bit at the end. Hopefully I'll finish it over the next week.
Right. But
It's
we
great.
learned
It's really fun.
some pretty important lessons. Number one being, if you can play it on PC, play it on PC instead. You know, and number two, test your shit before you try and do a giant stream.
Yep. Yeah, we tried to like publicize this and get it out there. Josh worked overtime trying to get us, trying to get the word out. And we all put it on social media constantly. And I even threw some mud at the wall and tagged the entire cast of Scott Pilgrim in a tweet. And then everything went to hell. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed.
Yeah. So like, it was just a bummer from the get-go. And I don't know if it could have been multi-factors, right? Number one, we're all kind of scattered across the United States. I'm actually probably the furthest from any of the rest of the team. But anytime you're playing an online game, especially an older one that could be using like older servers for connectivity, and I think that game particularly uses peer-to-peer. I don't think they have like any kind of dedicated server for it. So you're using peer-to-peer, you're going to have like latency issues and whatnot. Typically in a game like that, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. I think another one of the factors could have been we decided to play it on the Nintendo Switch, because that's what we were all going to get it for, just for personal use, right?
Well, and the reason behind that decision was it's an 8-bit brawler, sort of.
Yeah.
It should probably, like, I want to use my 8-bit dough. Yeah. I want to play it on a Nintendo console because that's where I would play River City Ransom.
Right.
Like, that just seemed logical, and that's as far as we took that thought.
Exactly. And so unless you buy the Ethernet dongle for your Nintendo Switch, which obviously none of us did, you're playing off of Wi-Fi there too. So there's another bottleneck. And then to top it off, I think just the netcode for that game is bad. So we could have avoided that disaster. Even if we had the same problems playing it on PC, we could have used something like Parsec to be able to just all play like a local version of the game. And sure, we might still have some latency issues, but it wouldn't have been nearly as bad. So it became virtually unplayable. We did manage to defeat 2.5 bosses, I want to say.
Yes, we did. Yeah. And I mean, we had, honestly, the Clash of Demon Head was basically dead.
Yeah.
When we finished, when we died.
Yeah. But we couldn't get past there. We kept having like game-breaking problems at that point because of the network issues, which was
we also learned that simul streaming is kind of difficult. Like, it's one thing if we're if we're playing something like Destiny where it's a completely different view from my stream to yours, and we're not all trying to be on Facecam. But when we're all on Facecam, the screen share, or the Zoom-esque software that we use takes up a surprising amount of bandwidth, which Paul's fiber connection can handle fine. My regular cable connection, not so much. So my stream was absolute hot garbage from the time I went live.
Yeah.
And as soon as I killed it, like my connection with our video software was much better too.
Yeah. So we learned a lot, but and again, it's not necessarily the game's fault. The game is a really cool game, but and the music in the game's some of the best video game music.
Knocked it out of the park. They did such a good job.
Some of the best video game music in any video game. But that was kind of a bummer that we had to deal with all that stuff. Other games that I played this week, a lot of Neo 2. Just
Yeah, you've played
started
a
that.
ton of that.
I really, really love that game. In fact, when Scott Pilgrim shit the bed, I switched the stream over to Neo 2
Yeah, I saw
because it
that.
was Samurai
I'm like, I had to
Saturday.
go in the other room. I'm like, no, I
Yeah,
can't watch Paul right now.
yeah. But that game is awesome, and I'm sure I'll do a review of it when I'm done. But I'm
Mhm.
really enjoying that, and I'm playing that with Chamali and Merc Tool. So yeah, really, really enjoying that game. And I've talked enough about Neo on the podcast that I don't feel like I necessarily need to give an introduction
Yeah, no,
or
you're
an
fine.
explanation of what that is. But I'm just absolutely loving that game. It's damn near perfection. And a lot of Mario 3D World, which I was excited about. I kind of forgot was coming out the other day, and then it came out,
Right?
and I was like, oh, I need to grab this immediately. And I've never played, so I played Mario 3D Land on the 3DS and I enjoy it. But Mario 3D World is freaking awesome.
Mhm.
And the
Yes.
Bowser's Fury mode, I didn't play a lot of it, but what I did play, I absolutely enjoyed. And like I can't stop thinking about how this game is like the 3D sequel to Mario 3. Like that's how this game
Oh,
feels to me.
really?
Oh my god, yes.
Oh,
Like
that's sick.
it even has
Huh.
like rolling tank levels and stuff. Um, it's fantastic, dude.
Oh
And
my God, I
it
can't
has a
wait.
similar item system, not the same item system as Mario 3 did. Mario 3 has a better one, but it has a similar item system to Mario 3 to a degree.
Mhm.
And it's just fantastic. Like, what a great game. A lot of people I feel like missed out on that game on the Wii U because not a
Okay.
lot of people bought the Wii U.
That's where
Um,
it was.
yeah. So, and that's even though I had a Wii U, I skipped over that game at the time too.
Mhm.
So, like this is like playing a brand new game for me. It looks fantastic on the Switch. Plays really well and I'm just absolutely enjoying the hell out of it. So, we are going to attempt to do this is difficult versus Bowser's Fury or whatever. Actually, we can't do Bowser's
That's
Fury. It's
cool.
just 2 player, but we're gonna do Mario 3D World.
Super Mario,
Um,
this is difficult world.
right, exactly. We're gonna try. We're definitely gonna test that one out
Yes, yeah.
before we hit the live button.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Um,
Nintendo and their online service.
yeah. So at the moment, our plan is to do that, but if we can't get it to work, that's a bummer. But
Yeah.
I would really love for that to happen because it's
What we
just
might
such
do,
a
I
fun
think, in the
game.
future is just pick one of the four or one of the three of us to stream it,
Yeah.
and we'll all have the overlays and just be good.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and that'll just be, and we'll just host it and it'll be fine. So you can
Yeah.
go to any one of our channels and see it. But
Yeah. I'm more worried about like the network connectivity, but I
Mhm.
honestly think that it being a newer game and it being a first party Nintendo game, it's gonna
Yeah, it's probably
have
got better
it's got a
architecture.
yeah, yeah. But we'll see.
Hopefully.
Definitely gonna test it out. But
Mhm.
that's pretty much I've probably played a couple other games here or there. The new Destiny DLC came out this last week and I did not play it.
Whoa, whoa! This is huge.
Yeah.
Paul not playing a Destiny
Yeah.
DLC on launch
Yeah.
is like
Yeah, that's a first for me. And I shouldn't say DLC, it's a season. So it's a little
right.
different
Yeah.
from DLC. But
Well, I mean, it's got some
yeah.
DLC
It's
content.
Yeah,
got
yeah,
some stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't play it. And that's just kind of speaks to where Destiny is. Not that Destiny is necessarily in a bad point, but I don't have any friends playing it right now, and that's where Destiny I feel like really excels.
Yeah.
And also
Yeah.
just time commitment, like they keep ramping up the amount of dedication that you need to pour into Destiny. And as much as I love that game and as much as I used to like main that game as my only game that I played, there's so many other games I want to play. Like
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's, now that we're doing this show and trying to expand our horizons, I guess, to
yeah.
vary up the reviews that we're doing. Like I found the same thing. I can't stick with a game for much longer than it takes to run the plot.
Yeah.
With exceptions, but like this game in particular, like I have no problem taking like as long as it needs to on a game like let's say Neo 2. That's probably going to
Mhm.
take me a while to beat.
Right.
And we'll cross that bridge when we come to it as far as like doing content on the podcast for it. But
Mhm.
like just being able to to keep up with the content that is in Destiny 2 to be able to grind out like my seasonal rank and things like that. I don't have the time. Like
Yeah,
I
no,
just simply do not have the time unless
no.
I shut down every other game that I'm playing and only
Right,
focus on that. And
right.
I can't. So
No,
it
it's
just
it's
Yeah.
really
that's an
I
absurd
feel like
ask.
it doesn't respect your time as a casual player right now. And I know that there's always a battle between like the casuals and like the hardcore players in Destiny. And it just
Yeah.
seems like even though you'll probably hear a lot of hardcore players complain a lot about Destiny, how it needs to be more geared towards hardcore, Bungie definitely leans towards them. Like
Hmm.
for people
Mhm.
who have jobs and other shit to do, Destiny is almost impossible to play right
Yeah,
now.
it's
Yeah.
just
I
not. It's a
I hate to
non-starter.
say this, but World of Warcraft actually did a really good job of kind of changing it over to that casual bit. Like
Mhm.
there were some problems, sure, but supposedly they're selling more now than they've ever, as far as subscriptions, because of how casualized the game has become.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've always considered Destiny MMO light, so to
Yeah,
speak.
and that's kind of
yeah,
what it
yeah,
was.
yeah.
And what they're doing now and what they've kind of pledged to do is start to make it more of an MMO. And like in my mind, I think okay, better skill customization, better or like character customization, but what they're delivering instead is just more grind. And that
Yeah.
to me is not what I play Destiny
Yeah.
for, which just bums me out.
But
It's
that's an
Um
yeah, me too.
MMO.
I mean, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, there
Yeah.
was a time, Paul, where if you were on, I was on.
Yeah, yeah. It's true.
Like, we had
It's true.
an absolute ball.
Yeah,
That is gone are those days.
yeah. That being said, once I get a PS5, I'll probably pick it back up. Just because I'll be able to, you know, play it more off stream and things like that. But like, I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll see. It also depends on what kind of content is available at the time.
right.
But yeah, like the last season, I played a little bit of the last season. It just kind of bummed me out. Because
Mhm.
I just couldn't commit enough to it. So,
Right.
anywho, let's get into our review. We're like 30 minutes in, so
Yeah, we had
let's
a deep
let's
deep
switch over
conversation
that.
there.
Yeah.
Candace is here. Oh my goodness. Hello.
Hey, Candace, what's up? How are you doing?
Hey,
Okay, switching
let me
to the
can
review
it.
screen. Wacky. There we are. All right, boys and
Hey.
girls. The game I'm reviewing this week is Onimusha 3. Um,
So good.
this game is awesome. Let me just get that out of the way. If you've played any of the or if you've never played any of the Onimusha games, um, the setting is, or for the first two anyway, is feudal Japan. You're, you know, just a samurai homie, and you've got demon powers, and you're fighting against scary demons, and like everyone tries to resurrect Oda Nobunaga, who I'm not going to give a Japanese history lesson on that right now, but he was, you know, the first like unifier of Japan, and so he's just kind of got legendary status. So you actually see him appear in a lot of games, especially Japanese games, where you know, he comes in as like the bad guy, and it's usually like a resurrection situation. But the games actually originally were supposed to be part of the Resident Evil series, but then they
Yes.
pivoted and made them
Yep.
their own. So the first two games you play with tank controls, and
Mhm.
it being like an action game, playing with tank controls is a little funky. And so the first two games are pretty difficult to get into, but once you get rolling, you know, it's very good. It's very fun. The third one, however, makes a big change to the formula. Not only is it not exclusively in feudal Japan, they introduce like a time travel element, which is really cool, and also a non-Japanese character, which is Jean
Jean
Reno,
Reno. It's
the
so
freaking
rad.
professional himself, which is awesome. But you also get to play in like modern day France, which is very cool. This game came out in on February 26, 2004, so it is by no means a new game. Um, I played it on PC via emulation, but I do own the game. I own the original PlayStation 2 game. Um, so that's how I played it. I don't have a PS2 anymore, but I ripped my copy and played it legally with emulation because I own the game. I just want to be clear about that. I bought it for
Quietly texts.
I bought it for I want to say like $30 for like, and it came brand new in a brand new case and everything with the wrapper, which was cool. But it's also apparently available on Windows, which I didn't know because I probably would have done that instead. And it's also apparently included with Game Pass, which I also didn't know.
Yep.
I have Game Pass. I could have played it for free. But if you want to pay for it, it's $19 or $19.99, so $20. What I like about the game is a lot of things. Number one, it's an Onimusha game, which I'm just a huge fan. But number two, they changed the formula, like I said before, from the tank controls to like a more modern, like analog stick action game control, which is it makes the combat so much nicer in the game. It's a huge improvement from the old ones. It's funny because when this first came out, I bought it and I played a very little bit of it and wasn't really impressed at the time. Onimusha 2 was like my favorite game for a really long time, and to me, it didn't live up to that. But having gone back now and replayed it, I think I might actually like this one a little more than Onimusha 2. I think the gameplay is better. The graphics are also better, obviously better. Instead of, another thing that I was surprised by, like replaying this, a lot of games from this era don't age very well. And what kept Onimusha 1 and 2 from aging significantly was they used pre-rendered backgrounds instead of full 3D backgrounds. Onimusha 3, on the other hand, does not use pre-rendered backgrounds. Everything's full 3D. And surprisingly to myself, I think the 3D actually held up pretty well, considering how old this game is.
Having watched you play it, yeah, it looks great.
It don't look
Now,
bad.
to be fair, I did upscale the resolution in the emulator from, whatever the original res was to 1080p. And I could have even done it up to 4K, but I don't have a monitor that can support that, so it wasn't a real big deal. Plus, you can't really stream in 4K. I mean, you can, but it's not super practical. So I upscaled it to 1080p, and it just looked fantastic. It was really well. So that's, things I liked about the game. What didn't I like about the game? Not much. Again, it some aspects of it are a little dated, being that it's a PS2 game. But for the most part, I think the game held up really well. One irritating thing about it was the little kid. Jean Reno's son in the game is so annoying. That was probably what stood out the most as something I didn't like about this game. Yeah, super freaking annoying.
Do you have to like take him around? I've never played any of these games.
There's not really. There might be like one escort mission, if I remember correctly, and it's not too bad. He appears in a lot of cutscenes, and he's just freaking annoying. He's just so annoying.
Rocks, kind of just
like super dumb,
NPCs.
like one of like some really terrible voice acting, which the rest of the voice acting in the game is good, but he's like typical like cartoon kid, like blah, 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 like it's awful.
Yeah.
Anyway,
like some underpaid intern voice actor.
Yeah. So that was annoying, but overall, I really, really enjoyed the game. It definitely like had a bunch of good quality of life improvements from the previous games as well. One of those things which I don't know how anyone survived or even bothered using your bow in any of the previous games, but like in the previous games, you have to actually go into your menu and switch to your bow for like projectile weapons, right?
Yeah.
In this, you can actually use, key combinations on your controller and use your bow without having to switch, which is a big freaking deal. And like, I know that seems like something that's stupid and simple, but like, that's one of those things that was like a huge quality of life improvement from the previous two games. Let's see. How's the gameplay? Was it fun? I've kind of already talked about that. Yes, it's very fun. It's very good. The art is fantastic. Like I said, the 3D rendering, even though a departure from the traditional Onimusha games, actually held up really well to modern times. So like at the time, it had to have been gorgeous. Like I remember playing it back in the day and being super impressed with how good it looked. And for it to still look so good, it's very well done. Sound design, I would say, with the exception of Home Skillet's voice, the little Henri, I think is his name.
Henri,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's good. Good voice acting. The one complaint I have about the voice acting though is this. Here I'm gonna skip forward in the gameplay, so I'm not just like sitting here. When you're playing as Jean Reno through most of the game, when he's speaking in English, it's not Jean Reno's voice. It's some other voice actor. When he speaks in French, it's Jean Reno's voice.
Yep.
But I think they, to cut costs, didn't have him do his voice lines in English, which was a bummer.
Yeah.
Of course.
Music, the music's fine, but like a lot of games that I play in this style, I couldn't say, like, I couldn't hum a tune from the game for you know. So it's somewhat unremarkable, but I'm sure if I went back and really paid attention to the music, I would probably enjoy it. And there's never a time where I'm like, this music doesn't fit what I'm doing. It's taking me out of the situation. It's always appropriate for what you're doing. So I think they did a fine job with that as well. How long did it take me? That I'm not sure. I would like
It seems like
guess.
it was quicker than Onimusha 1, but maybe not as quick as Onimusha 2.
That's a possibility. I
That's
honestly don't
my
know. I
perception
would
watching at the
say
store,
I would
so
say probably about 20 hours.
20. That's not bad.
Yeah, and that's a guess, honestly. I could be totally wrong. The stream that we're watching content from was 5 hours and 45 minutes.
right.
And so if you like multiply that by, 4 or something.
It was definitely at least 2 weeks, two full days that I was at the store, which is about 5 hours that you're streaming. And that's every other week, so
yeah,
at least 20.
I don't think I played it during the week at all, maybe once or twice.
Right.
And my weeknight streams are usually only like 2.5 hours, so
right.
Yeah, so I'm saying around 20, maybe a little more is how long it took me. And every moment of it's worth it, except for that annoying ass kid. The rest of the game is super good. Another thing I really like about the game is there's an abundance of end game content. There's really good new game plus content where if you like spend the time to like do all the little puzzles and like Demon Realm things during the game, you actually can unlock all of the weapons from the previous Onimusha games for New Game Plus,
Nice.
which is really cool. There's a few other little mini games. There's one which lets you play through part of the story as one of the side characters, as this other samurai. I forget his name, but like you can play through a significant amount of the story with him, which is really cool. It's called like the Tale of whatever the dude's name is. Forget what his name is. But, so like it had a surprising amount of endgame content, especially for a game that came out in 2004. It also had like a target, practice game or like mini game and things like that. It's pretty cool. Would I play a sequel? Hell yeah, I'd play a sequel. And actually, there is one more Onimusha game that I've never played, so I might look into getting that. I forget the subtitle to it, and it's not a numbered game. It's not called Onimusha 4. But I hear it's really good. So I'll look into seeing if I can get my hands on that bad boy. And this is also something
Dawn
that
of
I
Dreams?
just Dawn of Dreams. That's it. Yep.
Huh?
It's something that I wish continued, and I've said many times the Neo games are like spiritual successors to Onimusha. I really do feel like they are. With obviously Dark Souls mixed in. But I couldn't tell you what I'd pay for like an actual like modern Onimusha game.
I can guarantee that if there was another Onimusha game and it had multiplayer, that would be one we'd cross over and
Oh,
and
hell
all
yeah.
stream together.
That
Like,
would be
holy
such a
crap,
blast.
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Is there any rumors for a new one maybe in the
Not
future?
really. So the one thing that gave me hope was a couple years ago they re-released Onimusha Warlords, which is the first
Yeah.
one, on all
Okay.
the consoles. So I got it on Switch, and I actually did a playthrough on stream on the Switch, when that came out. And I was hoping maybe it would stir some people's feelings and maybe stoke some interest in a resurrection of the series, but I don't know that I've heard anything since about it, which is unfortunate, but you
Hmm.
know, it, it's fine. These games I feel like are masterpieces in and of themselves, and so
Mhm.
preserving them how they are, I'm okay with. Would I like a new one? Yes, but is it gonna break my heart if it never happens? I'll be okay. you know, I'll manage.
All will live.
Yeah. So, overall rating and impression, like if I gave my past tense rating and impression, I probably would have given this like a 7 at the most.
Yep.
But I didn't give it a chance, like I really didn't give it a chance the first time I played it. Going back and playing again, I think this is my favorite of the series, and I would
Wow.
have to say, again, you kind of got to look at it through nostalgia colored glasses to a degree because it is an old game. It doesn't necessarily hold up as well as some things would, but I think considering what it is, it held up very well. So I'd have to say probably like a 9.35.
Ooh,
Mhm.
that's pretty good.
That's
It's
really good.
it's still a really fantastic game. It's got really great puzzles in it. It's got really fun gameplay. It's good, and it's got a great story. It's not the most complex story. Basically,
But
kill
not
the
every game needs to
resurrected
be.
bad guy, but
Yeah.
like throwing in like the time travel and things like that is a fun twist, and it's just really enjoyable, all the way through.
So, do you have to play the first, second one to get the third one? Like to understand it?
Not necessarily, no, but it certainly helps. You could definitely jump into any one of the games, especially 1 and 2. 1 and 2, I feel like don't necessarily need each other. But
Okay.
3, I feel like does require a little bit of understanding from the original games. Actually, you could skip 2, which I like. That's maybe blasphemy for me to say that. This two has a different main character, right?
Mhm.
So instead of Samanosuke, you play as Jubei. And he doesn't return in any of the other games, I don't think. So like
Right.
there's not really necessarily any reason to play 2 if you're playing the games for the story. Also, if you ask me, 2 almost feels like a remake of 1 with a different character and better
Evil Dead
graphics.
Syndrome.
So while I think it's a better game than 2 or than 1, I think it's also probably the most unnecessary game in the series.
Sure.
Which, that again might be blasphemy to some people. And if you took me from 3 months ago and repeated what I just said to me, I'd punch you in the face. Because Onimusha 2 is always like my favorite game,
Yeah.
But honestly, after going back and finishing it, I feel like I can confidently say that. So yeah, it's great. And is it worth buying at the current price? Yeah. I mean, you can get it very inexpensively, and it's a fantastic game. If you have a PlayStation 2, get it. It's very enjoyable. And
We
you
did
probably
receive a
can still
note
find
that
it
it is
on.
not on PC the way we thought it was.
Okay, that's a bummer. So it's no longer on PC. If you had previously bought it, then it is. But
Yeah.
yeah. So the options would be play it on your PlayStation 2 if you still got one, or do what I did and buy it and then emulate it. So and it's worth it. It's good. It's fun.
Yeah.
So that wraps it up. That's my review of Onimusha 3. And let me get back to our scene. Boom. There
I'll
we
have
go.
to take that game into consideration for stuff
Yeah.
I want to go back in time.
Oh man,
Yeah, right. Like,
it's so much fun. It really is. Um, but yeah, I referred to it as Samurai Back to the Future when I was streaming it. Which
yeah,
Okay.
it kind of has
kind
that
of it kind
vibe.
of felt that way.
Kind
Yeah.
of felt that way. But yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. Our topic this week.
Yeah, so
Something
our
to that.
topic this week comes out of my out of our Hive Busters playthrough. So Alex and I have wrapped up playing the entirety of the Gears of War Phoenix family plot. We played Gears Judgment all the way through Gears 5, and then they dropped this DLC. Actually, when Gears 5 was just being announced, Chamali said, "Hey, Gears 5 is going to be campaign 3-player. Should we look into that?" I said, "Yeah, that sounds great. Let's do that thing." And Chamali and I tested it out. We had the foresight to test out a game.
Nice. Smart.
And Chamali played as the robot Jack, who is sort of this utility player. And we got off that first playthrough of like just the first few minutes, and we're like, "This is not going to be as fun for that third player."
Yeah.
Like, part of Gears is being in cover and lancering the snot out of Locust every now and again, or DBs, and Jack doesn't do that. He goes and fetches weapons for you. He can mind control certain things every now and again, but like you have to, like, there's a level up system to him. So we said, best stick with just Alex and Zach through the plot of Gears 5. And then they announced Hive Busters, which is proper 3-player. It's
Nice.
proper campaign 3-player. And Alex and I said, okay, we're not quite ready to do Gears Tactics yet because we haven't figured out what we need to do with Parsec to make it work. Let's do Hive Busters. And Chamali was bored, I guess, one day. And he's like, "Hey, I'm looking for a game." I'm like, "We're about to go live with Hive Busters. You want to join?" And it took him half the stream to install it, but he was there. And so we played Hive Busters. And what got me thinking was, by the time we finished that DLC, our communication was absolutely flawless. There was a great bit that Paul, you clipped, where Chamali was basically dead. And because his communication, and Alex's as well, were so precise, I was able to line up a sniper shot and take out the guy who was about to chainsaw him in half.
Yeah. That's a really good clip.
Yeah.
Oh.
Paul, you and RPD both clipped it, and I had to like decide whose was gonna get kept.
Yeah.
You won that one.
Yeah.
Usually it's RPD. RPD is pretty good at clipping stuff. So is Chamali, for that matter. But
I wanted it to be concise, but also capture all the drama of the moment, and I felt like I got the beginning and end point of that little moment. Like,
yeah,
I felt like I captured it really well.
And so it got me thinking, like, what? And full disclosure, I studied communication in college, so I'm frequently thinking about what makes good cooperative game communication. What do you look for in your teammates? Because we've definitely, Josh, sorry, I haven't played as many games with you as I have with Paul, so I'm going to be making a lot of references to games that Paul and I have played together. We definitely experienced some very awful communication in some of our Destiny runs.
Yeah. Early on, for sure. Especially when we were like first dipping into some of the raids. And it wasn't necessarily between Zach and I. It like when you're doing a raid, you're communicating with 6 people total, you know. And so sometimes you just get into a team and people are trying to be a hero, or they're trying to just do their own thing, and that's just something you cannot do in a raid. You have to be on spot with your call outs at the right time in the right area, and if you're not doing that, it can get extremely frustrating.
Chat notes that, or Candace specifically notes that someone who understands your shorthand is very helpful. And I agree. We all have specific terminology that we use that may not have anything to do with the game at all. It's almost like the Darmok episode of Star Trek, where we're speaking the same language, but our metaphors and representations of things are completely out of the blue. So when I was first doing raids with you guys, we what was the very first raid we did? The one that's really easy now.
Garden of Salvation?
No. The one on the ship with.
Oh yeah. The Callus one. Shoot, what is it called? The first one.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't
the
remember.
Leviathan.
Leviathan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Leviathan, that's right.
And
I love that raid.
that raid
It's
is
like
great.
playing a game show. It's so
It
much
really
fun.
is. And you were saying like grab the orb and dunk it. I had
Yeah.
absolutely no. I thought I was literally supposed to be playing basketball
Yeah.
because my metaphors were mixed up. And then eventually I was like, oh, okay, you mean grab it and go place it in that thing.
Yeah. Dunk
And
it.
if I had played some of the strikes with you that sort of informed that behavior, I would have had a much better idea of what you were talking about.
Yeah.
But
sure.
instead, I dove right into a raid with you. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. This gun, shoot that guy. He's moving. Oh, wait, that's a teammate.
I'm admittedly also very bad at instructing people in raids. I try and always get someone else to do it.
Yes. And then you run into the situation where we were playing with a bunch of people from various countries around the world, not all United States. And the metaphors are completely the duchies of the world.
They're fun to play with, though.
They're very fun, very polite and silly and lighthearted people in general. But their metaphors are so wildly different that, and their gameplay is so wildly different that I was just like, I am completely out of my element here.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're asking me to do. Yeah. So my default is find a target and shoot it.
Sure.
So that's definitely what makes, like, for poor communication. What do you look for?
What do you look for good communication?
For good communication, yeah.
Well, I think like Candace mentioned in chat, like knowing each other's shorthand is pretty important. But like if you're playing with someone that you're not familiar with, that's right. Really difficult to learn right off the bat. Something that can be really useful is to like try and build some rapport with the people that you're playing with. Maybe don't jump into content that requires insane communication right off the bat, and warm up with something. Maybe warm up with some PvP of something, or maybe warm up with, some more casual gameplay modes in whatever game you're playing. And that way you can kind of joke around with them, build some rapport with them, and start to learn kind of how they communicate. And then go ahead and jump into whatever more difficult content you're trying to play.
Now the juxtaposition there, of course, is the time commitment, because, the average, we keep referencing Destiny, the average Garden of Salvation raid is an entire dang Saturday.
Well,
like, that was for us. For us.
It should be like an hour and a half. But for us it was because of the poor communication. Right. So yeah. Well, let's maybe use a different game as an example. Let's talk about when you and I played Goof Troop.
Yeah, okay. Sure. Yeah.
So what I think helped us to communicate well in Goof Troop was being able to, like, when there was a more difficult puzzle, being able to like sit back and analyze, okay, like be able to verbally tell someone like what position on the screen they need to be at when, work out the timing, like decide what your call outs are going to be, before trying to tackle that puzzle or whatever it is. And then once you're ready to execute, everything should go smoothly. If you have established what your call outs and what everyone's job for that piece of content would be, I think is pretty important.
Yeah.
I think to some extent, a lot of it is also just the skill of the player, because there's been some WoW raids that I did with the last expansion that I jumped in with a random group of like 20 people, and we still were able to take down 3 of like 5 or 6 bosses, and that is with absolutely nobody knowing anybody in that group. It's just a whole pug. We just all kind of knew what to do, and when we screwed up, someone would just tell us what we did wrong, and then we just fix it right then and like, or the next attempt.
Yeah.
So I think skill definitely is a lot in it too.
But you can't always rely on that.
Yeah,
either.
You can't always rely on skill is the thing. So like to me, the most important thing is establishing how you're going to communicate, right? So like these is, this is what I use as a call out for this. This is what I use as a call out for that. Like, this is what I call this position on the map. This is what I call this, and that way you and your teammate or teammates can then effectively, um, you know, communicate what it is that you're trying to do. Also assigning jobs, right? Like
Yeah.
in the case of a raid, whether it be Destiny or whether it be Ghost of Tsushima or whether it be WoW, you know, figure out what the encounter requires and then assign jobs to each player, you know.
Yeah.
And on that, I mean, asking questions
Mm-hmm.
is
Oh,
so vitally important, and treating people who are asking questions with the utmost respect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Because I've definitely been on teams that, like, everybody else kind of knew what was going on and I was not aware of what was going on, so I would ask questions that in my mind seemed kind of stupid,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody else just kind of knew what they needed to do. But a good respectful team will answer every question you have, because their end game is to win as well. They're trying to be successful.
Also listening, like, don't try
yeah.
and just be the hero in whatever game you're playing. Like, listen to what your teammates are saying. If you
Yeah.
can't listen to what they're saying, then doesn't matter what call outs you're using, doesn't matter, how
Right.
effectively you're communicating. You're not, you're like 50% of what's going on in that situation is just failing immediately if you're not
Mhm.
listening.
Yeah, I
Um,
can't remember if it was with you. Chamali once invited me to a Destiny 2 group for, I think it was the Garden of Hope. It's the first time I ever walked in there, and it took us several hours, but we made it to the very last boss where you got to shoot it in the chest when it lights up.
oh yeah, Garden of
And
Salvation. Yeah, yeah.
That's Garden of Salvation. Yeah.
we couldn't beat it because for some reason every time it glowed, like, I don't know if it was half the raid group or we just weren't doing enough damage, but it seemed like no one was shooting at it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I don't
I don't
I remember doing that. I
We
don't
had
remember
every
the
problem in the
particular
book
reason
on
why
that raid.
that happened. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I've beaten that raid in like under an hour and a half, and I've also played that raid for like 6.5 hours. Like, really, really does boil down to how well you're communicating with your team. So yeah. I think, and we can close with this one. Another good example of good communication was on our failed Scott Pilgrim stream this weekend.
Definitely. We had an epic moment of beautiful communication. That was one of the like highlights of the stream.
Yeah.
So as we stated at the top of the show, we fought every possible communication glitch. My stream got completely borked. Broody Gambit was operating out of the middle of an ice storm, and so his power was going in and out, and his internet was bad. Paul's farther away from us, so he's having trouble connecting to us as well. I think Chamali was the only one stable throughout the whole show, and I think he had some problems too. But at one point, there was this really, really odd glitch where Chamali and Paul and I finished the screen and walked into a shop. Meanwhile, Broody Gambit is still like fighting invisible dudes, like, punching and kicking. And we're like, dude, there's nothing there. Go in the shop. He's like, no, there's stuff all around me. There's things everywhere. Okay, I finally got through it. And
I was referring to the other moment, actually.
Oh, okay, go ahead then.
Everyone else had walked into the shop, and I was the one outside.
Oh, okay,
fighting
all right.
people. And I was like,
Yeah.
Where are you guys? Everyone's like, we're in the shop. I'm like, no, you're not. You're on my screen. I can see you right now. And they're like, no, we're in the shop. And I was like, no, you're moving around my screen. I can see you. And so what ended up happening and what ended up fixing the issue temporarily, I need to throw that in there, was being able to guide everyone blindly into the shop.
Yep.
Because
and he did it.
And I did. Like, I just talked everyone calmly through, analyze the situation, figure out where everyone is on the map, and just explain to them, okay, you need to take this many steps to the right, you need to come up this far. And we got everyone into the shop, including myself, and everyone was able to do their thing. We all left the shop together, and we were able to play for another like 30 seconds.
It was really short, but we got to the end of the level, and then it all fell apart again. And we're like, well, how much for that?
Dude, what a disaster that stream was. But
God,
it
it
was
was horrible, but it was funny.
fun. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, part of that is we know each other
Mhm.
and we've all gamed together before.
Mhm.
So we sort of speak each other's language.
Mhm.
And it's a testament to it makes me wonder how much communication theory goes into or goes through the mind of a developer as they're
Mhm.
building those types of games.
Mhm.
Because Scott Pilgrim is very clearly designed for couch co-op.
Yeah.
Where you're sitting right next to each other, you can have those discussions in person, face to face.
Mhm.
Where something like Gears or Destiny is definitely not designed for couch co-op. So you
Right.
have to develop those shorthands.
Mhm.
And it makes me wonder, and I don't think we'll ever find this out unless we get a developer on the show. Developers, want to come on the show? How much they talk about what communication they expect to have happen.
Yeah.
So it's an
I
interesting
agree.
thought.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very cool. Well, this is Difficult podcast. I think this was a fun one. Thank you, Josh, so much for coming on and filling in for
Thanks, man.
original Josh. We got other Josh here today. Like I said, he's our new social media guy. He's doing all the social media. So he actually and it's in chat right now. We've got new social media accounts on several platforms. On Twitter, difficult_this. On Instagram, this.is.difficult.podcast. Kind of a mouthful. Same thing on Facebook. You can find and follow us on there. We're gonna try and post clips, post when we're going live for things, when we're doing special events, things like that. Try and just build some more involvement with you guys, with the community.
Yep.
And we're
And
all, I
don't
mean,
worry,
we're all
I
going to
do
try and.
invite. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say we're gonna try and be a little more present in each other's streams too,
Mhm.
like in chat and whatnot. As it stands, Paul and I have both been in each other's chats a little more frequently.
Mhm.
Josh, our original Josh, is in the process of moving. That's why he's not here today.
Mhm.
So we'll see him popping up a little bit more frequently as well, and obviously we'll be hanging out in new Josh's stream too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. So anyway, if you're watching the stream right now live, you're on my Twitch channel. I stream on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and I do Samurai Saturdays every Saturday. We play Samurai games, which is a lot of fun. And then obviously the podcast here on Sundays. If you're watching it on YouTube, please just share it. We love comments and likes and all that stuff, but the most important thing is just get the news out there. The
Yep.
YouTube link should be in the post and chat as well. We don't have enough followers to get a named YouTube yet, so follow that link.
grandfathered in.
Yes.
Hope you guys start
Anyhow,
popping into the socials. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys, getting to know you a little bit better. Just sharing our love for gaming.
for sure.
So,
For sure.
just make sure to pop in, say hi, give
Yep.
us a follow.
You can also
Yeah.
find me on Twitter at Ryugami-sama. And that's where you can find me. Josh, where can we find you, Home Skillet?
So I am momentarily sane 6 at Twitter, and that's the same thing for my Twitch channel, momentarily sane 6.
Excellent.
So if you can remember that, that's where I'm at.
Perfect.
Right.
And Zach, where can we find you, my guy?
So I am on Twitch at Another Letdown. We're live Thursday, Friday, Saturday this week. Thursday for video games of some kind, still to be determined. Depends on if 4Gs can work with Alex and me on Parsec and get Gears Tactics working. Otherwise, it'll be Batman Arkham City. Friday, we're gonna try and put to bed the Buffy the Vampire Slayer tabletop board game, which is very fun. And Saturday, miniatures painting. Working through Batman Gotham City Chronicles.
Nice, very good. And then
And I'm
also
on Twitter at DENONCZD.
yeah. Last but not least, don't forget to join us in Discord. The link should also be in the chat there. And we just made it actually public Discord recently.
Yep.
So or like an official, I don't know what the hell you call it. But anyway, so it's open to anyone, and obviously there's rules, but just be respectful and cool. If you want to come chat with us and hang out, talk about video games, you
And
have
other things.
suggestions, other things, mostly just video games though. But
Kind of like the podcast.
just like the podcast, yeah, everyone's more than welcome there. So yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you so much once again, and we will see you guys next week. Have an awesome night.
See
Bye.
ya.
Toodaloo.